The quiet apology. The apology didn't come with flowers, or tears, or a trembling voice. It came quietly, so quietly that it almost went unnoticed. Every morning, Ion stopped at the same corner café before work. He ordered the same coffee, stood in the same spot, and scrolled through his phone while waiting. And every morning, the barista, an older man with tired eyes, served him in silence. They had once exchanged words, not kind ones. Weeks ago, Ion had snapped impatiently when his order was delayed, his frustration spilling onto someone who didn't deserve it. The barista had said nothing then, only nodded and handed over the cup. Since that day, the air between them felt heavier. Ion thought about apologizing many times, but the moment always slipped away. Words felt too big, so instead, he started with small things. He stopped scrolling and looked up. He said, "Good morning." He waited patiently, even when the line was long. One morning, he left an extra bill on the counter without explanation. Another day, he smiled, really smiled, for the first time in weeks. The barista noticed. He noticed the patience, the softened eyes, the way Ion no longer rushed the moment. He noticed the kindness growing where harshness once lived. One rainy morning, Ion forgot his wallet. Embarrassed, he stepped aside, ready to leave. Without a word, the barista slid the coffee across the counter. When Ion protested, the man simply said, "It's okay." In that moment, understanding passed between them, no speeches, no excuses. Just forgiveness, offered quietly. Sometimes, the truest apologies aren't spoken. They're shown, through changed behavior, through gentler actions, through kindness that asks for nothing in return. And sometimes, that's enough. After the rainy morning, something shifted, not loudly, not suddenly, but enough to be felt. Ion began arriving earlier at the café. Not because he needed to, but because he wanted time to be there without rushing. He noticed things he had ignored before: the soft hum of the espresso machine, the way the barista wiped the counter between customers, the careful precision with which he steamed the milk, as if every cup mattered. The barista's name tag read Kareem. Ion had never bothered to read it before. One morning, Ion finally spoke. "Long day already?" he asked gently, noticing the faint tremor in Kareem's hands. Kareem paused, surprised. Then he nodded. "They're all long days," he said, not bitterly, just honestly. From then on, small conversations bloomed. Ion learned Kareem worked double shifts to support his family. Kareem learned Ion was new to the city and often felt invisible in the crowd. Neither shared too much, but what they shared mattered. One afternoon, the cafe grew unusually busy. Orders piled up. Voices rose, impatience returned to the room. A customer snapped sharply at Kareem, louder than Ion ever had. This time, Ion didn't stay silent. "He's doing his best," Ion said calmly. "We can wait." Kareem looked up, startled. Gratitude flickered in his eyes, quiet, like everything else between them. That evening, as Ion turned to leave, Kareem called after him. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" Ion asked. Kareem hesitated. "For being different now." Ion nodded, feeling the weight lift from his chest. The apology he never spoke had finally been heard. Because sometimes kindness isn't about fixing the past with words. It's about honoring it by becoming better in the present. Days turned into weeks, and the cafe became more than a stop in Ion's routine. It became a place where he felt grounded. Kareem no longer served coffee in silence. Their exchanges were still simple, but warmth now lived between the words. One evening, Ion noticed the cafe lights were dimmer than usual. Kareem looked exhausted, more than before. His smile was slower, his shoulders heavier. "Everything all right?" Ion asked softly. Kareem hesitated, then sighed. "My wife's been ill," he said. "I stay late here, then go home and pretend I'm not tired." Ion didn't know what to say. So he did what he had learned mattered most, he listened. No advice. No solutions. Just presence. The next morning, Ion arrived with a small paper bag. Inside was homemade soup, still warm. He placed it on the counter quietly. For later, he said. Nothing more. Kareem's eyes softened. He pressed his lips together, holding back emotion. You didn't have to, he whispered. I wanted to, Ion replied. That day, Kareem brewed Ion's coffee a little slower, a little more carefully. When he handed it over, he said, You remind me that people can change. Ion carried those words with him. Months later, Ion didn't come to the café for several days. When he finally returned, Kareem looked relieved. I was worried, he admitted. Ion smiled faintly. I needed time to fix something I broke, myself. Kareem nodded, understanding more than Ion expected. On Ion's last morning in the city, he stood at the counter longer than usual. He didn't explain he was leaving. He didn't apologize out loud. Instead, he simply said, Thank you for forgiving me. Kareem met his eyes. You already said it, he replied gently. Sometimes apologies don't echo through rooms. They settle quietly into hearts. Where change begins, and kindness stays.